Your liver is like your body's multitasker, breaking down stuff you don't need and keeping everything running smoothly. But what happens when we put too much work on our livers? It turns out they have a breaking point, especially when it comes to handling alcohol. Today, we're diving into how much alcohol is too much for your liver and what happens when we overindulge. You might be surprised to know that scientists haven't pinned down an exact amount of alcohol that is universally harmful for everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer. However, medical experts from the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee have come up with some solid recommendations for adults. They suggest that men should have no more than 2 drinks and women should have no more than 1 drink per week. Additionally, on days when alcohol is consumed, it's recommended to spread out the drinks over several hours, and, importantly, some people should avoid alcohol entirely. We'll talk about who these folks are in just a bit. Now, you might be wondering, what's a standard drink? Good question. A standard drink usually means about 14 grams of pure alcohol, which you'll find in 1 12-ounce can or bottle of beer, about 5% alcohol, 1 5-ounce glass of wine, about 12% alcohol, or 1 1.5-ounce shot of liquor, about 40% alcohol. But why worry about liver health at all? You might think, hey, a drink or two won't hurt. Well, you'd be right if we were talking about a one-time thing. However, problems start when drinking becomes a regular habit. Let's break it down. First off, there are a bunch of not-so-good things that can happen when we drink too much alcohol, like getting liver disease, dealing with high blood pressure, having trouble with memory and sleep, getting into fights, getting pregnant without protection, and even ending up with cancer. Oh, and let's not forget about the dreaded hangover. Not fun, right? So let's chat about the big one, liver disease. Our livers are like the ultimate multitaskers, handling tons of stuff from breaking down old cells to making sure our blood stays clean, but too much alcohol and it's game over for our livers. Here's how. When you drink alcohol, your liver jumps into action, breaking it down into small particles. First, it converts alcohol into acetaldehyde, which is even more toxic than alcohol itself. Next, acetaldehyde gets converted into acetate, a much more stable intermediate, before finally turning into carbon dioxide and water. That carbon dioxide gets released through your lungs while the water gets cleaned by your kidneys and ends up as urine. This whole process is like your liver's way of detoxing the bad stuff out of your system. However, here's where things can go wrong. Your liver needs certain helpers called enzymes to do this breakdown. But if you drink too much alcohol, your liver can get overwhelmed, and the first step of this breakdown process gets slowed down. More alcohol keeps coming in, but the helpers can't keep up. So guess what happens? Yeah, you got it. That toxic acetaldehyde starts building up in your body. And here's the kicker. That buildup triggers inflammation and fat starts accumulating in your liver. Boom, you've got fatty liver disease. Now, normally, if you give your liver a break, it can bounce back, but too much damage and you're looking at irreversible scarring called fibrosis. And if things go really south, you might end up with cirrhosis, a condition where your liver is so scarred it can't work properly anymore. Talk about a buzzkill. Next up is high blood pressure, which is another reason why doctors might tell you to cut back on those drinks. Here's the deal. When you drink alcohol, your body sees it as a toxin and kicks into action to get rid of it. As part of this cleanup process, your body releases a hormone called vasopressin, which tells your kidneys to hold on to more water. But too much of this hormone and you'll end up with extra fluid retention and higher blood pressure. And nobody wants that. Then there's the impact on your sleep and memory. Have you ever noticed how you feel super tired after a night of drinking? Alcohol makes you feel sleepy because it acts as a depressant, slowing down brain activity. But here's the catch. Even if you fall asleep quickly, your sleep quality takes a nosedive. You'll have less REM sleep and more time spent in the deep stages. And let's not forget about those middle-of-the-night bathroom breaks. Alcohol is a diuretic, meaning it makes you pee more, which can disrupt your sleep even further. And when you wake up, you'll likely have a killer headache, thanks to your blood vessels expanding and your body trying to rehydrate. And if that's not enough, alcohol messes with your memory too. Drinking too much can make it hard for your brain to send messages, and that includes the parts of your brain that handle memory. You might also experience blackouts, periods of time when you're still conscious but can't remember anything that happened. It's like your brain is on strike and refuses to store any memories from that night. So if you want to keep those embarrassing stories to a minimum, it's best to keep the alcohol in check. Let's not forget about alcohol's effect on relationships and personal safety. Drinking too much can cause you to act in ways you wouldn't when you're sober, like getting into fights or having unprotected sex. And let's face it, waking up with a stranger next to you isn't always the best idea. Plus, alcohol can make you forget where you are and put you in situations that you wouldn't normally find yourself in. Remember that friend who always calls you after a night out because he forgot where he parked his car? Yep, alcohol has that kind of effect. And then there are the increased risks of cancer. Alcohol is already tough on your liver, but when combined with certain habits, it can increase your risk of developing 7 types of cancer, including breast, colon, esophageal, liver, oral, throat, and rectal cancer. If you drink alcohol every day, quitting or cutting back can lower your risk of developing these cancers. Alright, so what happens when we drink too much? Your liver's first line of defense is breaking down the alcohol into smaller particles. However, when you drink too much alcohol, your liver becomes overloaded, and the first stage of breakdown slows down. This leads to a buildup of acetaldehyde, a toxic substance that causes inflammation and fat accumulation in the liver, resulting in fatty liver disease. Over time, this can progress to fibrosis and eventually cirrhosis, which are much more serious liver conditions. Now let's talk about who should avoid alcohol entirely. First up, anyone under the age of 21. Alcohol isn't good for developing brains, so it's important to wait until you're older to start drinking, if you choose to do so. Also, if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, it's best to skip the booze. Alcohol can harm your baby's development and even lead to a condition called fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. No bueno. Additionally, if you have certain medical conditions, such as liver disease, heart problems, or mental health issues, you might want to avoid alcohol or drink in moderation. People taking medications that interact with alcohol should also steer clear. And let's not forget about those who have had significant alcohol-related problems in the past. If you've been down that road before, it's important to take a break and focus on getting your life back on track. Here are some signs that it's time to seek help. If you're starting to drink at a young age, finding yourself in situations where alcohol is the only option, like hanging out in bars or partying, having frequent blackouts or waking up without remembering the night before, needing to drink to fall asleep, or feeling anxious or nervous without alcohol, experiencing negative consequences because of your drinking, like getting into fights, having unprotected sex, or missing work or school. There are some great resources out there to help you cut back or quit drinking. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration has a helpline that offers free, confidential support and referrals to treatment centers. You can reach them anytime at 1-800-662-HELP. I hope this video was helpful and informative. Remember, everything in life is about balance. Yes, having a drink or two occasionally can be part of social events or celebrations, but it's essential to know your limits and drink responsibly. So, cheers to your health and well-being. Thanks for watching. See you next time.